So Hogan went to Atlanta in '94,
Hmm.
and business was down. It had been
In
down,
the entire wrestling business at that point.
and um, that company was built. Dusty Rhodes built that company, and Hogan came in there, and then in '96, Hogan was babyface. In '96, when the NWO started,
Hmm.
um, Hulk turned heel,
Hmm.
and my point in this is that going from he was the biggest good guy babyface in the history of the business, and then turning heel,
At a time when people still believed it for the most part.
that and turning heel, that eh, that is not easy to do, in the sense that how well that he made the transition from being the greatest good guy ever into turning into being a heel, and did not miss a beat.
And didn't really change his work that much either.
Yeah, did not miss a beat. And what I'm trying to say is, people talk about being smart to the wrestling business. To do what Hulk did in '96, to go from the greatest babyface ever to being arguably the hottest heel in the business, you have to really you have to be smart to the business. I mean, you have to know what the people are buying. You have to know what to do. You have to know what to do in the ring to come off, to pull that off.
And he understood the timing of it too, because at first I think he was lukewarm to it, but once he saw when those two guys were getting over, like Nash had said, he was doing that show out in California, and he said, "Yeah, that train's moving pretty fast, but it's not moving so fast that I can't jump on it."
Right, and a lot of people I've heard will take shots at Hulk over that, talk about how he jumped on the NWO bandwagon or whatever. Okay, it's one thing to see that the NWO was getting over. I think everybody saw that.
Yeah.
But to do what he did, to see that getting over, okay, and people can sit and be armchair quarterbacks and say, "Oh, well, Hulk just jumped on the bandwagon of the NWO." Okay, it's one thing to see it getting over, but to see it getting over and then think, "Okay, how do I do what he did?"
Because those two guys helped him. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash gave him a cool factor that he had lost. They were over better than he was with the people at that time, but he also gave them a legitimacy that they wouldn't have had any other way. They were all three of them worked good for each other. That was, it's not the same without Hulk joining, because
Yeah,
it doesn't become what it became. And I mean, it was still going to get over. It already was getting over, but he legitimized those two guys, and those guys made him a little bit cooler than he had been in a while.
yeah, and again, to look back and say, "Okay, this is getting over. How do I do this?" And going back to the fact that being the biggest baby face of all time, and then successfully turning heel and not missing a step,
It's hard to do.
not missing a beat. The point being is, you have to be. People talk about being smart to the business. You have to be smart to the business to pull that off the way Hulk did, and not miss a beat, and become even bigger and get more longevity out of that. That is just, you you have to know the business to do that.
That first run that he started, he was in New York working for Vince Sr., and Rocky 3 came along, and the late one, Vince McMahon Sr., didn't want him to do the movie. He said, I don't have actors, I only have wrestlers here. So Hulk went out to California, did Rocky 3, and that whole Hulkamania thing like this, he started doing that. The rudiment of that was in Tennessee with Jarrett and Jerry Lawler, and then he took that to the AWA with Vern, because they were selling out in Minneapolis. That was the last big pop that Minneapolis had. And the conflict apparently was over. Hulk also had a big Japan deal, and Vern wanted some of that cut. And Hulk went, "No, that was the first of that. That don't work for me, brother."
Uh,
And he went to work for Vince Jr., Vince McMahon, who everyone knows as Vince. And he was really the one that made Vince a successful promoter. Yeah, Vince has had a lot of stars, and that's pretty much over now, because he's, even Walt Disney got old, but he was the guy that really made Vince a successful promoter. Yeah, he had Roddy, he had Paul Orndorff, he had Greg Valentine, he had a lot of other guys that he bought from other places, but Hulk was the one that really, I mean, then he went on to create his own guys like Steve Austin, The Undertaker, Rock, and helped develop Shawn and Bret Hart. But had it not been for Hulk, Vince would not have become the successful promoter that he became, and he would not have able, because to be able to, it's one thing to be able to play to an audience in, let's say, New York, to the half smart crowd at that time. It's another thing to be able to play to that down and dirty blood and thunder that we had in Florida and Georgia, and then the stiff style that we had in Texas. Because some guys would come in from New York and they wouldn't get over. Some guys would go to Dallas, from Dallas, and go to New York and really wouldn't get it. But Hulk was the one guy that he appealed to everyone. He had mass appeal, and he was the centerpiece. And think about this with him. He never hardly ever worked on TV. You see him on Saturday Night's Main Event because that was for NBC, but you would very rarely see him have a match on primetime with the great Bobby Heenan, the great Gorilla Monsoon, in one of the greatest wrestling television shows of all time. You'd never see him on Superstars. You'd never see him on Challenge. You wouldn't even see him on All American Wrestling. All you would see is you'd see him in an interview every so often, but there was a presence of him there. You'd always see his picture in the magazine. He was there, but the only way you're going to get to see him was if you came to the arenas.
Yeah.
And if you looked at the gate receipts, let's say they worked the Rosemont Horizon and Hulk was on the main event, let's say with Paul Orndorff or Bundy or Macho Man, it'd sell out. If they'd go back to Chicago and Hulk wasn't on, let's say Hulk went to Philadelphia and they were still running Chicago, because they would run 3 towns a night back then. The difference in the gate when Hulk was there and when he wasn't, tremendously different. He had mass appeal, and that was the way that Vince became a successful promoter, because Hulk was, everyone could relate to him. Everyone could, I mean, it was pretty easy to do. All you'd have to do is just, I mean, you give him a tall guy, you give him a fat guy, skinny guy, give him 2 guys. Like he once said, just give him the right dance partner, and, look at how many,
Yeah.
he made the WWF a successful promotion in that era. It had been successful with Larry Zbyszko and Bruno Sammartino and all and Buddy Rogers too, Billy Graham, Bruno. They had been successful in that era, but the Hulk Hogan era, the Vince McMahon Jr. era, he's the one that legitimized Vince as a promoter.
And it was fun. Like, just looking back, like Hulk, it was like fun back then. Like, just think of Hogan in like the mid '80s. It was fun. I don't.
And he was believable too.